What it do, y'all? It's Coffee tapping back in, and 50 Cent weighing in on some updates in the Diddy legal saga. That's just so crazy, man, because you got the criminal case where Diddy's facing forever in a day, and then you got all those civil matters, which is wild because that's how the criminal element side of things even really jumped off. It kind of reminds me of the R. Kelly thing, right? When R. Kelly, we now know as he's convicted in serving forever in a fucking day. And I say he should rock, man. That's coming from someone that was a huge R. Kelly fan, man. Comment with your thoughts on it. So many people seem to have sympathy for him. I'm like, yo, R. Kelly was a straight serial pedo for years and got away with it. And with the case now being what it is and everything played out in court, like we saw how he beat some of those cases was with witness tampering, lying, all kinds of like shady tactics on the low, which typically when the feds pick up things, you know what I mean? When you get on the feds radar and they're coming for your ass, they know all that. And they're like, not this time around. That ain't going to work. But then when the R. Kelly, surviving R. Kelly dropped, more stuff started happening. And that's a whole story all in itself. But it's kind of similar to the Diddy thing in a sense where there's been all these allegations against Diddy forever. You know, like people just knew Diddy was on some weirdo-ish. Now we're even seeing that it might be some Epstein-like type-ish. You know what I mean? Like some real sick, twisted, deviant, demon behavior that's been going on for years. And all those lawsuits started happening. Next thing you know, the feds are involved. They're raiding his crib. And, you know, it took a little bit of time, but at the end of the day, he's behind bars fighting all this legal mess. And, you know, more civil allegations keep coming. So with it all, he's got a whole legal team, which if you go back to the case that he beat, the J-Lo Shine situation where Shine went and did 9 jump offs, he had a whole legal team back then and beat the case for the gun possession, which the feds were questioning J-Lo about that. Yo, did Diddy make you hold the strap down? Did he force you? You know what I mean? Like I said, when someone evades state prosecution different times, but then the feds come to play, they go all the way back and go over all that, just like we were talking about with R. Kelly. And now here Diddy sits and you see the big update here. Courtroom magician Joe Tacopina saved A$AP Rocky's life. Now Diddy's knocking on his door. Now, listen, everyone was always talking about Brian Steele, who was Young Thug's attorney. Like, yo, he's the man and all that. He had him cop out and take that plea in that RICO case that was going on for years and was a joke, a clown show. And the 2 other individuals, Stillwell and Yak Gotti, they face the fucking jury and get not guilty verdicts. And Young Thug's on this probation. They just try to violate him. It ain't work. He's still free or whatever. I always see Brian Steele getting praised as like the #1 guy in the hip hop world now. But I was like, yo, Tacopina, what he did in this A$AP Rocky case, he was on fire. He killed it. He exposed A$AP Relly for the goofy clown, like fake victim trying to extort money out of A$AP Rocky that he is. And without Tacopina being this aggressive lawyer who's been a prosecutor.
Hear your testimony. Yeah. Okay. And when you said it, I said, fuck you, it was with love, right? That's what you said. I don't get what you're saying. What did you hear yourself just say? I don't get what you're saying. I know. Here it comes. What did you hear yourself just say? But what are you getting at? I don't get what you're saying. What I'm getting at. But just explain it again. I'm getting confused. I'm getting hard. Just listen. He's asking you.
So y'all see A$AP Relly's looking like the biggest goof ever. You know, this was a case where Rocky was looking at like 24 years. They offered him a sweet plea deal and all that. And he said, nah, we're going to take this thing to trial. This is already getting to where Relly is folding and getting all flustered and looking like the worst witness / victim ever in the history of court. but I didn't catch it all in this the way I wanted to. This was from Tacopina, the way he questioned him, you know. But you can see there's some before this that I missed out on where he was really exposing him, like where he's saying, you're saying, yo, F you, it was with love. Like he's exposing him. Again, if y'all comment if you've seen the whole court, like you filed the case. You know what I mean? He went in on this guy. He exposed him. But again, this is already into when he's getting flustered from the way Tacopina was showing, man, you're lying. You're lying. You're mad. You're a hater. You're trying to extort money out of Rocky.
Did you hear your testimony? Mm-hmm. Yes. Just asking you. Did I say it? Did I say, I don't know. Can you explain the question? Did you see yourself? I see myself. Did you hear yourself? I heard myself. Was that truthful? What's truthful? What you just said. That I love him or like we was cool? I don't know what you mean. I said a lot of things. The part that you said, I said, fuck you, it was sort of wishy-washy with love, you know? Okay, that was true, yeah. By the way, before we start talking about the events surrounding November 6th, 2021, which we will talk about for Stefan. Can you pull up the rest of the text message? Stefan, here's what we're going to do. I'll ask the questions. You're going to answer. Okay, if you can. In November 2021, you told...
See, that was slick how he said, listen, Relly's mad because it ain't going the way he wants. And he sees that and he's like, I'll ask the questions. You just answer. You know what I mean? I just thought that he really shined in this case. Let me know if y'all felt that way as well.
You told people that you were a millionaire, correct? What? You do not understand my question. I don't understand this. Yes, no, I don't know. Which you got all three in there. Yes, no, I'm talking about 21. I told somebody I do so much stuff. I don't know what's the content are you talking about? Okay, you know that name Wally? Wally? Okay, so what? I'd probably say yes or no. I don't care. Like, what do you want to say? I said yes or no. I don't care.
It was also smart of him to throw that in there. Oh, so you told people you're a millionaire. You know what I mean? Because he knows a lot of this comes from Relly's being all in his feelings that Rocky is a fashion sensation, making money in music, acting, all this stuff where Relly didn't blow up like that. You know, he had an opportunity with being part of the ASAP mob as well. And, you know, he didn't capitalize off that the way Rocky or Ferg did or other individuals, you know, and he knows like it comes down to money. He tried to extort him for money multiple times. There's still a civil case going on with all this. He's actually suing Tacopina, the attorney, as well as Rocky. I haven't filed the updates in that. Tap in and let me know if you have. But that was genius for him to be like, oh, so you said you were a millionaire. He knew that would get him flustered as well.
That's your answer. What is me being I don't get it, but no. Yes, no, I don't know. Pick one. Pick one for the jury. I don't know. It's been so long. I can tell people whatever I want. If I'm a millionaire, not a millionaire, like what? I'm not a millionaire, but what does that have to do with this case?
Saffron, just answer the question. He asked you a yes or no question. Ask the question.
But I don't want to get the right wrong. I don't know what is he.
You heard him. I'm not a millionaire, but what does that have to do with this case? Well, from Relly's simple view, he was just mad. So now he's going to try to put Rocky in jail. Things didn't go this way, but it has everything to do with the case when the lawyer strategically is trying to break down and diminish your credibility and image as a victim or anything like that. Because, you know, this was some bullshit what dude did. So again, I'm just trying to point out how great Tacopina was on the stand, and now we see there's reports Diddy's trying to employ him.
Let me listen to the question. Is the answer either going to be yes, no, or I don't know?
Like, why don't you show my Instagram? I'm already getting death threats. People threatening my daughter. Like, what's going on here? Who gave you that? The whole world. The world threatening you. The whole world gave you that. What you're saying? Because I asked you a question, how you understand? Because you're saying I'm an extortionist and all of this, you're putting my whole life on.
Nobody, no one is calling you an extortionist. You're going to get, you're going to get through a lot faster if he just answered the questions.
You see, man, he just exposed him for the fraud that he is, to what it really was. And I thought that was great lawyer work, like, oh, you're making me look out to be an extortionist. And it said it all right there. The judge said, no one's saying that, but he knows that's the way it's coming off, because that's really what it was. We had a situation where the victim was really guilty, and this attorney's great work exposed that.
Okay, so let's get to the ASAP Rocky trial. So you took this on 3 years ago?
Yeah, about 3 years ago, yeah.
Okay, so it finally gets to the point where there's a court date and there's a negotiation with the prosecution leading up to the court date. And the prosecution offers a 6-month plea deal, which in Los Angeles would really be 3 months?
You got it.
Okay.
So y'all heard that. He was facing 24 years. They offered him a plea to what would be 3 months, 6 months, but really 3. Sweet deal. No, we're going to take this thing to trial. You know what I'm saying? Like, what a wild, it just shows you, you know what I'm saying, the focus. Like, Rocky wasn't bowing down neither, but the attorney was like, yo, I'm with you. We're going to make mincemeat out of this goofy. You know what I'm saying? And you pay attention to the situation Diddy's in. Like, no wonder why he wants to add this guy to his legal dream team. You know what I'm saying?
I'll be honest, and I've said this during multiple interviews.
You and 100 other people, go ahead.
From my point of view, at that point, considering the risks involved, because he was facing the worst case 24 years, right? When you weigh the odds, 3 months in jail, in PC, versus potentially multiple years in prison,
Decades.
I've always said I would have just taken it, even if I didn't do it, just because the risk is too high on the other end.
Cannot blame you. I know many clients who have done that.
Yeah.
A little different here. One, and people say, did you guys have a long discussion about it? Was it like, I said, our discussion lasted literally 60 seconds. It was Rocky, and it wasn't a negotiation. I never asked for a plea. We never went there asking for anything. We never asked for anything. We asked for a dismissal. They didn't want to do that, so we were going. They then said, the eve of trial, or, during jury selection, how about this plea? Would you take it? And I said, look, I'm duty bound and obligated to bring it to him. I'd get ready for trial if I were you, though, I said. And, they're like, what? Because, he's facing at least minimum a decade. He's going in for a decade if he loses, up to 24, whatever. I said, okay, thanks. And we spoke, Rocky and I. He looked at me in the eyes.
Yo, the legal system does that a lot, too. You'll hear of, and again, this guy has been on the other side. He's been a prosecutor before and all that, right? But they pad their stats. Oh, they have over this many convictions, this and that. So in this situation, a case that's bullshit, that they had audacity to really even take to court, they'll offer a sweet plea deal where at the end of the day, if by some chance you lose, you're doing a minimum a decade, possibly multiple decades, right? And you heard Vlad, and you heard the attorney say, yeah, a lot of people would rock that way as well. I'm going to just take the plea, go do, like, you know what I mean? Get it over with. And then the court can still secure that statistically. That's why sometimes numbers lie, right? Women lie, men lie, numbers don't. Sometimes they do. They can be deceiving in this situation. And, they said, nah, we ain't going to let them get this cheap W. We're going to go and expose Relly for a liar, a fake ass victim, and win.
I said, Joe, how do you feel? Rocky, we're going to win. And he said, okay, then I can't take this because, one, I didn't do it. Two, the plea that they were offering wasn't just take a few months in jail and go home and it's all even now. It was more than that. It was a plea to assault with a semi-automatic weapon, a 7-year suspended sentence that turned into 6 months, which would have been 3 months. But that suspended sentence hangs over your head there. He crosses against the red one day and someone has a bad morning. That's that. It also came with multiple years, I think 3 years probation, okay, where he'd be under their thumb. I had this with Meek Mill. Meek was on probation for 10 years. Literally, they kept extending his probation. He took a plea when he was a kid, 18. I wasn't representing him, but he took a plea with probation. And the judge in that case, Judge Brinkley, who was rebuked and really came down hard on by the appellate division in Pennsylvania, they kept extending his probation. He violated. He was late 5 minutes for a court appearance. He was late for a meeting. He wore white socks one day when he was supposed to wear black socks. That's it. 2 more years extension. So
that Meek Mill situation happened. If y'all remember that was a wild situation that ended up playing into a thing with Robert Kraft and the Patriots, the owner of the Patriots, and other people being involved with Meek for criminal justice reform, the way that the court can oftentimes, not force someone into taking a plea, but make them feel like they have no choice to take a plea. And then his probation, wasn't it for some bullshit like riding a 4-wheeler or something like that? You know what I mean? Like that was a wild one. And these are all the factors that the average individual don't think about. And when someone has a bullshit lawyer, it doesn't break down to them all this. This guy is already, you know what I'm saying? The thoughts are in motion already. Machine in motion.
It's not quite that clear cut and simple. Then that felony conviction would have required him to basically never travel out of this country. His career would have been finished. There's no more touring in the UK where he's popular.
So again, UK tours, Europe tours. He's in the fashion world with Gucci, who did some bullshit. They try to run a Gucci guilty campaign when he's going to trial. That's crazy. But, these are all the things one doesn't think about. There's always more to the story.
Thailand or anywhere else where he wants to go, France, Canada, all those places gone. His career would be really, all intents and purposes, over. His Puma deal, gone. Gucci, gone. The Ray-Ban thing that happened was solidified or confirmed after the trial. They were waiting for the verdict. It never would have happened. He would have basically lost his career. And so it wasn't just, 3 months, come on, he could do that, standing on his head. It was a little bit more than that, and he maintained his innocence. So he wasn't about to perjure himself and say, I'm guilty, and I shot a gun. So it was that quick. Look, do you not think for a second, Vlad, I hadn't lost sleep over that? I mean, I didn't sleep during that trial. I still had the look. I'm looking at myself, and I feel, I wish you could do, can you do a little Photoshop on this video later or something? Because, this trial was supposed to be 2 weeks. It turned out to be 5.5 weeks with jury selection. When you're on trial, any trial lawyer will tell you, at least the ones that count, you don't sleep during trial. I mean, you take maybe a nap for 2 hours, and you do it like this, with one eye open, a notepad next to you, because inevitably, in the middle of the night, I'm like, oh God, and I think of something, and I write it. You're in court all day, 9 to 5, whatever. You grab something super quick to eat. I try to get a workout in, because then my mind starts deteriorating, and then you get back into it. We're in the office till 3, 4 a.m. every morning preparing for the next day, fine-tuning what we're doing for the next day. And then you go again, and you're fine. In the courtroom, I'm fine. It's all adrenaline. You're going based on adrenaline. But, at the end of the trial, and every trial I've ever had, my partner Chad too, your body gives in and breaks down and you get sick. So for 3 or 4 days you're wiped out. So it's an experience that is hard to describe unless you've ever been in it. But it is, it turned out to be a 6-week thing almost. And it was a war. It was a complete war, because I was going against a prosecutor who had, in my opinion, lost his mind, acted in a way that I've never seen a prosecutor act or an adversary act in my 120 trials. I spoke to 6 of the jurors after this case. They were offended by his conduct. The judge had to come down on him hard, which I've never seen a judge yell at a prosecutor in front of a jury. That was a first for me also. Then he has this very extravagant history, let's put it that way. So it was a war. This was not just a case. This turned out to be a war. It became very personal, because when I'm representing someone, be it Rocky or John Smith, right, or Jane Doe, I get into a bunker with them. It's a bunker mentality. I treat them like family. They are family to me, and Rocky and Rihanna have become family to me. But in the moment, in the trial, I take everything personally. I don't let anyone try and put anything over. There's I think I'm just different that way, but some lawyers do it. But a lot of lawyers just, it's not their case. They go in there, they do their job, and then they leave. I can't. I have to, it's like I'm representing my son or my brother or something when I'm sitting there. And so I can't leave one stone unturned. And this Judge Arnold, said something to me that I'll never forget. He's been a judge for 32 years, and aside from the compliments he gave in front of in open court to Rihanna, he said, your husband's lawyer is the best trial lawyer I've ever seen. He then said to me, he goes, Joe, let me ask you a question. Do you do this in every case? I said, why, Your Honor? And he said, you didn't leave one stone unturned. I mean, like, your cross-examination was brutalizing, but you just went through every fact, but you knew every fact. And then in your summation, 5.5 hours, but the jury was on the edge of their seats. You covered everything. Do you do this every case? I said, yeah, I don't know how not to do it. He goes, oh my God. So it's not just because this case was like a high profile. I said, no, oh my God, of course not. I said, the poor guy who I represented last year, no one ever knew about, was facing similar consequences. How could I sleep and think that it's okay just to mail it in because he's not a high profile guy? And, so it was, it was nice that it was acknowledged by this judge, who was a phenomenal jurist, and someone who had been around 32 years and seen that and said it. The other thing was the TV aspect here. I vigorously opposed this, Vlad. I mean, I didn't want a television in this courtroom because I've seen people lose their minds. OJ was a great example of how televisions make people become aliens instead of like judges or lawyers or whatever. I wanted this to be about Rocky and focus on this case. The judge basically says, it's California. Sorry, too bad you have your objection, whatever.
So that's not the full interview, or we might as well ride it out. This is on Vlad, ASAP Rocky's lawyer, Joe Tacopino, on why Rocky rejected 6-month plea deal. And then there's some of these recent headlines here. Diddy's lawyer quits, says, under no circumstances can I continue. One of his lawyers quit. Sean Diddy Combs' defense lawyer says he can no longer serve as counsel to the disgraced music mogul. Rico, however you say his name, was one of 6 defense attorneys for Diddy. Under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel for Sean Combs, Rico wrote in the Manhattan federal court filing. And, he withdrew from the case for whatever reason. And here we are now, where apparently Diddy, like I said, you can go back. This is how he beat a case before, putting together a legal dream team. And then we circle back to where we were in the beginning of this video. 50 Cent, someone who was telling us forever how Diddy really was, that he was a weirdo. He says, if Diddy can get Joe, he might beat this case, but he's going to have to pay a lot of money. There's no time to prepare. So will he take the case? Can he become part of the team and help him beat the case? As Fifth just said, his back's against the wall. There's no time to prepare. This isn't going to be a case where he's been a part of it from Jump Street. Will he morally want to represent Diddy? There's so many questions here as we follow this Diddy case. Let's see what the people are talking about, though. Interesting. Joe went on Vlad to explain Diddy's case. I didn't see that one. I should check that out. Comment if we should do a video on that. Joe said feds won't let Diddy go without leaving with something. He already said no to Diddy from last month. It'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds. Diddy always knows how to make a comeback. That's true. Like we were just saying, man, it's a different war when it comes, as you heard him too, that case was war with ASAP Rocky. This would really be war with the feds. You know what I mean? They want their pound of flesh, if you will. Like we spoke about in the beginning. R. Kelly, someone who had beat state cases. Diddy, someone who did. Now when the feds come to play, it's different. You know what I mean? This ain't state. Diddy is facing federal charges. It's a big difference. It's exactly what I was just saying. Besides Cassie, any other cases? Best lawyer, and I hope he says no. Diddy is cooked. Even this lawyer can't whip up a new recipe. There's no time to prepare. Diddy could bring Johnny Cochran back from the dead and still not win this case. I think Johnny Cochran, R.I.P. to Johnny, one of the greats. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. I believe he was a part of that gun case when Shine went away for 9. I think he was a part of Diddy's legal team, if I'm not mistaken. You may get away with it on earth, but you still have to face judgment day in front of God. That's a fact, man. So there you have it. Update. Takapina, Fifth's giving his reaction. Comment your thoughts about Diddy's case, about everything we touched on in this one. Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content. It's Coffee, talking music, sports, news, current events, all kinds of stuff. It's all about hearing from y'all, the people, and I'm up out of here. Peace.